Hello, everybody. Welcome to the, what are we in, March 7th? Is that right? March 7th, Lunch with the Mayor. Glad to have you all coming in here. We're excited to do a little back and forth conversation here with my co-pilot, Rosie Coyle. As always, if you have questions for me or for Rosie, please feel free to put them in the chat. As you know, when we do this, I have to have my cell phone. I have to watch those comments. So if you do have comments or thoughts, go ahead and put them in here, and I'll be happy to read those and try to get as many answers as I can. So we have a lot of things to chat about today. Obviously, project updates and things like that. But we're going to start off with Rosie. So if you don't know, this is Rosie Coyle, Clerk Treasurer of the City of Columbia City. And Rosie, earlier this year, decided that it was time to take a step back. And so we will talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the Clerk Treasurer and you know what it is and what it isn't and those kind of things. Why I call her my co-pilot, because we kind of are the CEO and CFO working together for the city, if you will. So there's a lot of things we'll try to cover in that. But as always, I appreciate you checking in and watching this. If you are watching this on YouTube later, thanks for tuning into that. As always, if you have any questions outside of this video, feel free to email me at rdaniel@columbiacity.net, or you can call my office at 260-248-5111, and we're happy to try to get any questions answered that you may have. Unless it's utility questions, then call her office at 260-248-5100. So with that, I've already kind of introduced you, but Rosie Coyle, Clerk Treasurer of the City of Columbia City. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your background. Tell the public kind of about you and your family.
Well, I grew up on a 80-acre farm out in Coessie.
Okay.
And helped my dad farm.
Okay.
Because he worked a full-time job, so us kids helped do the milking the cows and all the farm stuff. But and then I went to Columbia City Joint High School, married my husband, who will be 58 or 59 years this year, and we have had 3 beautiful children.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is deceased, and I have four grandchildren. And 2 great-grandchildren.
2 greats.
2 greats.
You call them what, grands? Is that what your greats?
My great-grandchildren.
Your greats.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're just the proud. I am just the proud great-grandma.
Proud great-grandma. Yes. Well, that's really so. You are one of how many kids?
6. One of them was passed, but
but you're one of 6.
Still have 5 siblings.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So, obviously, you have been the Clerk Treasurer for quite some time. So, can you talk a little bit about how long you've served in the position and kind of how you came to be in this position?
This will be my 40 years. And back in 1983, Jim Tagmeyer was running for council. And he came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in, since I had been here about 13 years, if I'd be interested in running for the Clerk Treasurer's job. At that time, I had worked side by side for Franklin Dillman for years and did a lot of learning from him.
Yeah.
And I decided, I was a little scared about it because I never went to college or anything, but I did all the hands-on work, so I thought, you know what the heck, I'll try it.
Throw your hat in the ring.
I did, and I landed the job and have been here ever since.
Gotcha. And so this year marks what, your 60th year working for the City of Columbia City,
Yes.
right? Never had basically any other job,
No.
at least in your adult life. You've never had any other job than this role. And I think our Cities and Towns president called you an institution. And I don't know if that's good, bad, or otherwise, but shout out to Matt Greller out there. But in any case, so what about the job interested you? Like, what was it that, outside of obviously Jim Tegmeyer saying, hey, I think you should run for this, what is it about the job that you really thought you would enjoy? And then I'll ask you the secondary question, which is, what is it that you enjoy now about the job?
Well, at that time, things were all done by hand, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't so overcoming like it is now. But
Yep.
I did all that stuff, and so I just thought, you know what? I wasn't really happy where things were going,
Yeah.
and neither was the office staff.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what? They asked me, he said, "Oh, you need to do it."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'll just give it a try.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started.
Okay, and then I think there's, in a lot of ways, I think the clerk treasurer's job is a bit thankless, maybe more than a bit thankless, but I think it's also a bit hidden. As in, I don't think the majority of the population, if it wasn't that you had served so long, let me say it that way, I don't think the majority of the population would even know that there is a clerk treasurer, what the clerk treasurer's job is, right? Because typically it's not saying this for my own benefit, but typically the mayor's the one that's cutting the ribbons. It's the mayor's the one that's out doing the projects and things, and yet you are such a critical role in that. So describe that role, those roles and responsibilities of the clerk treasurer's position.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that people don't know that I do, and one of them I think is I take care of all the cemetery records. I sell people lots.
Mhm.
I schedule opening and closings with all the funeral homes. I marry people, which I've tried to get away from that. It was funny
Yeah.
going touring the jail the other day, how many people I married.
You
in
married
that
in the
little
jail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take care of because we're one of the few cities that have a utility.
Mm-hmm.
I take care of all the money that flows into the office as far as the utility bills, the park,
Mm-hmm.
any of the police money, fire money. It's just, and then all these grants that we seem to be
that
getting.
some individuals tend to go after.
Yeah, once we get them, then I have to take care of all the paperwork.
Yeah.
It's just like the phone rings all the time because they say, well, everybody says to call you because you'll know. So there is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I could go on forever,
Sure.
but
Sure.
those are a lot of the stuff that I think.
And I think from a statutory perspective, really your basic role is record keeping and accounts, right? Like funding accounts and making sure those balance and the dollars in and dollars out, right? I mean that's kind of like the basic foundation, but then all the other things you're in charge of. The whole utility office. You're in charge of city hall maintenance and city hall janitorial work. You're obviously you're kind of the go-between for a lot of individuals, but because you've been in the position for as long as you have, I think there's also a lot of people that say, instead of going I'll call it the appropriate route of like, hey, I'm going to go to the website and look this up, or I'm going to try to find the information, they'll just call you because you'll know the answer, right? And so that's all those additional responsibilities on top of your statutory role, if you will, right?
And I am secretary to the council and the board of works.
Yep.
And I do, once you've met with the department heads, I have to put all that budget stuff together and
Mhm.
work with the state, trying to come up with a balanced budget. And at the annual report at the end of the year, trying to make sure all that's
Yep.
perfect and uploaded to the state.
And then when
So-
they come into audit, you have to
Oh,
provide
yeah.
all those. I shouldn't say we because she does all that, but you have to provide all the documents to show,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to go off script for a moment, so I hope that's okay. How has the role changed from when you started to now? Like, what are some of those things that are so different now that you would have never believed when you first took the role?
Well, when I first took over, everything was done on paper.
Yeah.
And then now it's to the point where, okay, everything was typed on a typewriter.
Yeah.
I used to do all the minutes on a typewriter. It had like a cover over it, and then we went back and I ran it on what they called a Gestetner.
Okay.
And it printed it out on paper.
Okay.
And now, I remember when we remodeled City Hall and we moved to the phone company up there for a while.
Okay.
They said, oh, we're going to get computers. And I said, okay, I'm done. There's no way I can do a computer.
Yeah.
And now everything is on computer.
Everything.
Everything
Yeah.
is uploaded to the state
Yeah.
instead of sending stuff in. It's just changed dramatically.
Absolutely.
We used to print our utility bills on a card and mail them out, and now everything's just sent to the processor and they mail them
The
out.
email or mail or
Yeah.
whatever, and
Email, you never
Yeah.
heard of email?
yeah.
You didn't have a phone.
Yeah.
You had to come to your office and talk on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things
Yeah.
have changed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I know even at times when you're home, you know, what a lot of people probably don't understand is even when you're home with your family or whatever, you still answer calls. You still pull up reports. You still turn on and turn off individuals based on, you know, whether they paid their bill or,
Yes.
I mean, all those things, right? And so, I mean, I don't think individuals realize how much time and effort you put into it. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, which is I don't think a lot of people even realize that you have this job. And that's not a slam on you, but it's a quiet job. It really
Yeah.
is. It's not something that's so much out front and stuff. And I know that could be some a bit of your personality. You don't necessarily love the limelight like this, right?
Yes.
But I think that's I think that's a testament to the work that you've done and the I guess the foundation that you've built in that. So I'm going to ask you another really fun question, which is and I'm skipping around a little bit, but how have you handled different mayors throughout your time in office? Because if you're on if it's 40 years, that means that you've won what 11 elections, and in that time, you probably are at what 6-ish mayors? Is that right?
I've worked with 10
You've
mayors.
worked with 10 mayors. Okay,
Including
wow,
you.
I'm way off. Okay.
Yeah, and I've always worked very, very good with them.
Yes.
I may not have agreed with everything, but I respected their position
Yeah,
as
yeah.
they did me.
Yes.
And I've seen, going to conventions, and you've heard it too,
Mhm.
listening to these other cities and how horrible they get along.
Yeah.
Their administration don't get along with the clerk don't get along with the mayor.
Yeah.
The mayor doesn't get along with the council. And I just
Yeah.
feel like Columbia City's been
Yeah.
very, very lucky
Yeah.
with who we've had.
Yeah.
And
Well, and again, I think it goes back to what you said, which is respect, right? And I think in anything that we do, I think that having a level of respect for each portion's individual roles, right? So the city council is over they're the legislative body, so they're over the ordinances, and we will prepare those ordinances and we'll do what we need to do to support them, but ultimately it's the council's decision on what to do with those ordinances, right? In the same way, when it comes to the financial accountability and how those funds are set up and things like that, that's, as well as I do, that's your role, right? And I try not to get too far into that. And the same thing for me when it comes to actual, I'm going to say policy, but projects in general, right? But we each have a connectivity to each other, right? What they pass, what the council passes, you have to record and you have to have an accountability for State Board of Accounts or whoever else, right? And if we get sued because of that ordinance, you have to handle the insurance part, right? I have to enforce that ordinance, things like that. So that kind of separation of powers and all those kind of interesting things. But you've definitely had a lot of different mayors that have ran through here. And so who was the first mayor you worked with?
Mike Weber.
Ike Weber. Okay. So yes, when we talk about mayors of the past, I like to go in my brain to the council chambers that has all the pictures.
Yeah.
so that's really neat. So obviously, like we talked about, you made a decision earlier this year that you're going to take a step back, and actually, just for public information, which I think a press release hopefully is coming out here soon. The Republican Party held a caucus on last Saturday, and Leslie Robinson, who is our Northeast District City Council person, she actually won the caucus to I don't know that you can replace Rosie, but at least take that position. And so I think the official transition date is, what did you say, May 2nd? Is that right? May 2nd is the official transition date, but I think it's important for the public to know a couple things. Number one is why what went into making that decision for you, And then second is what does this look like for you? What is the transition going to look like, and what should the city, what should residents expect? So.
Well, I've thought about retiring for years,
Mm-hmm.
and every time I say something, the kids would say, "I've heard that before, Mom." And I finally, unfortunately, I keep saying I want to walk out of this place.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just leave it. Something happened to me, and
Yeah.
somebody's got to learn it all. Which
Sure.
There's nobody that
From the
does.
ground up.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I typed up my letter, and I thought, I just turned 77, and I thought it's time.
Okay.
And I typed up my letter, and I left it sit there for a few days, just waiting to push that button. And I finally said, okay, I got to do it.
Yeah.
Because everybody said, you'll know when it's your time. You'll know when you're ready.
Yeah.
And that day I happened to be ready.
And you were ready.
And I pushed that button.
Yeah.
And
then you had a panic attack
yeah,
after that.
then I did. Then I just was, kind of depressed about it.
Yep.
Because it's like all these employees are my second
Sure.
family.
Sure. I can't
And it's-
imagine how many employees you've worked with here at the city over 60 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that number has to be probably above, I've got to imagine is probably in the 1,000 plus.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
And there's nobody here now
that was
when
there
I
then.
started.
Yeah. Because
But-
you were just a young whippersnapper when you started.
Yeah,
So,
I was.
yeah.
And it's like I'm giving somebody else my kids to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
It is very scary. But, we had two good candidates,
Mm-hmm.
and Leslie won, and my plans are, I really want to stay as an employee
Mm-hmm.
till after the first of the year, because there's budgets that have to be done in
Mhm.
June, and then the annual report, and nobody knows how to do it. So
Yes.
I really want to
Yeah.
work her through this,
Gotcha.
because it's a lot to learn. I wish
Absolutely.
I could download everything on a
Have a USB port that you can just
and
yeah.
that would be fantastic.
Well,
but-
and I think that's something again that a lot of people don't realize is I think they see portions of, let's just talk about the budget process for a second, right? I think they see portions of the budget process, which is obviously the department heads kind of figure out what kind of things they want to do next year, and then we kind of look at what the money is, and then we present a budget to council, and they think from there it's kind of set. But that's not at all the process, right? So we get a kind of an estimate of revenue earlier in the year, and we have I sit down with all my department heads. We talk through the budget. We talk about what each of them want and projects that are coming up and equipment needs and employee needs, and then I kind of make some decisions on what we're going to fund and what we're not going to fund. Then it goes to you, and you really kind of do the calculations of what our salary is going to look like, and what our benefits going to look like, and what our insurance going to look like. And then through that conglomeration, we do some double checking and checking and double checking, and then finally we present that budget to the council. But that's not the end of the process, right? So then we get, what is it, December? We finally find out how much money we're actually going to get.
Yeah, I have to take those figures and either set rates to try and match the money we need, or just let it figure itself. Then I send it to the state, and then they get back with me and say, okay, you need to cut 300,000. You got 7 days to do it.
Yep.
And so that's when we scratch our heads.
I was gonna
and
say,
go,
and typically that happens late December, early January, typically,
Yeah.
right? And so, I guess I just say that for the citizens' edification to say, when we propose a budget in September, right? Typically September, October, when we propose a budget, that budget is typically not the final budget. It more than likely will go down slightly or significantly depending on what kind of revenue we have. And that, of course, is based on the taxes or the utilities or things like that. And I think that's the other important part that I know you and I talk a lot about is that, we are in charge of 9 different departments, 10, 11 different departments, if you will, and so our wages actually are spread out among both taxes as well as utilities, because we work on all those things, right? We work on, and you guys especially work on the utility side a lot more and stuff, but generally speaking, those budgets are made up of lots of different funding sources. And as the not to go too deep down this rabbit trail, if you will, but as the legislature contemplates the idea of property tax cuts and what that means from a practical level, what it means to residents and businesses, and certainly what it means to our services that we provide, that is something that we're keeping a close eye on, and it's something that it could be really a challenge, right? As we try to attract good talent, and as we try to put in amenities that continue to grow and improve our community and all that kind of good stuff. But like I said, gone off the track a little bit, but I just think it's important for the community to understand what all goes into the budget process. Is there any pieces I missed out of the budget process that maybe would be helpful for them to know?
I
There's
think
public
you got-
notices and
yeah.
all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
but then you have an annual report that happens,
Yeah.
and that annual report is basically all the finances from the past year, right?
Mhm.
What else is that what basically the engine?
Yeah, you have to go in there and list any money you've given to, like, nonprofit
Yeah, like the Chamber or
organizations.
Columbia City
Yeah.
Connect or any of those.
You have to list all your grants you've gotten and what you spent and what money you've got, and then upload all our year-end stuff, and then try and make it all balance.
Yeah.
And it's like to what the year-end was.
Yes.
But
And so you have to wait to close out books.
yes.
Right, before you can do that annual report and all
Right.
that kind of good stuff. So, what are some experiences or stories that you have from your time serving here? Because I'm sure you probably have a library in your brain of
Yeah.
things that have been unique and interesting. But what is maybe a public appropriate story or experience that you would want to share?
A couple things. I remember before I took over being clerk treasurer, one of the customers told the previous clerk treasurer that it was her fault that she got pregnant because she had to pay her utility bill and she couldn't afford her birth control pills. And
Oh
it's
my
like,
goodness!
Are you kidding me?
Oh my!
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's
and then
interesting.
before we remodeled, this whole area out here was a park. I know some of you might not remember it, but a lot of them will.
Mhm.
And we had like a pond at each end and goldfish in them.
Really?
Yeah, and that's when Dr. Herder's house was over there.
Okay.
But our offices was actually right here in this area,
Yeah.
and so I'm only on the next floor
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And so we'd look out the window and bless Keith Kissinger. And if anybody remembers
Oh, Keith. I do remember Keith.
he
Yes.
was something else.
Yeah.
But you'd look out and here's Keith on the ground underneath the bushes, picking out all the trash and everything.
Oh,
He just
yeah.
admired this park and
Yeah.
kept it so good.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that's always stuck in my mind as
Yeah. Yeah.
a
I was gonna say, and that remodel in the mid '90s, basically remodel of City Hall, which is what we know now, because you guys were in what was my former office and now is dispatch, right?
Mhm.
And so kind of it just, I remember hearing stories about the fire department that they had to like dispatch themselves, then jump out the window and go drive the truck or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was before the renovation, because that
Yeah.
would have been in your spot. your
because they
area.
were in the back and
Yep.
then like dispatch would get a call and they'd take off and go drive the fire truck, and there's been a lot of times I'd go man the radio
Oh yeah.
because there's somebody with
Yeah.
feet there. But
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
can't. It's just again,
It's-
thinking back about how all that happened back in the day, if you will, and
my.
stuff. It's amazing to me to think about. Just to think about how far we've came since then, right?
Oh,
I mean, we
yeah.
have our own full-time dispatch staff that's there 24/7 now, 2-3 people each shift, and obviously we have a full-time fire department that has a lot of obviously 3 or 4 on a shift right now, and we have same for police kind of, and so it's just but where we've been and where we're going is just
Yeah, when I started here, started at 75 cents an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much?
75
cents an hour. Okay.
And once I started working part-time through school, my dad said, okay, you can get a car now. So I think it was Buchanan's was on the corner where the jail is.
Yeah.
And I bought my first Comet, a comet
A
car.
Comet? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, from there, and it was like, oh, I was in seventh heaven. Yeah, and how cheap things were, and the attraction of downtown at that time
Mhm.
was Schultz's Dime Store,
Okay.
where Ball Furniture is,
Okay.
and they sold everything, and that's where everybody headed.
That's where everyone went.
Yeah,
Was
they
there a
didn't-
soda fountain in there?
No.
No, not a soda
They
fountain.
didn't have a Walmart then, or
Okay.
microwaves. You had to cook your own food. But so much has just changed. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Life is completely different
Oh,
then,
yeah.
I'm sure. So, let's see what else. What is one thing the public doesn't know or realize about your position?
Well, I kind of hit on most of them. I think probably maybe the cemetery.
Mhm.
I know there's been holidays where I remember one instant where one of the funeral homes called me, and the person that died, I think, was a Jewish
Mhm,
person,
mhm, mhm.
and they're not allowed to. They have to be buried within a day.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to go out and find him a space,
Wow.
and it's things like that people don't realize.
Yeah.
It's not a 8 to 5
It's not
job.
an 8 to 5
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that and stuff. So this is your last call for the public. If you're watching this live stream and you have questions, go ahead and shoot them on the live stream, and I'll be happy to try to get those answered, or ask Rosie, or try to get those answered myself. So obviously, one of the things that I think you guys do a pretty good job doing is to making sure that if individuals can't pay their utility bills, that your office handles, that you work out ways for them to pay, payment plans, things like that. You also have lots of different ways in which they can pay their bills and stuff. Do you want to maybe hit on that real quick, and then I'll ask maybe your last couple questions?
People they struggle, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And we're more than happy to work with people.
Mhm.
I mean, if they're an abuser and they don't follow through with their promises,
Yes.
then we don't
Yeah.
let them have a promise.
To be clear,
But-
what that means is that if there's someone that we are consistently turning off for non-payment, or they promise to pay and then they don't pay, just for
Yeah.
more context to that.
or they
Yeah,
give us
yeah.
a bad check just to
Or
get
give a
turned
bad
back
check,
on.
yeah.
Yeah. But we're more than happy, and my office staff is just amazing.
Yeah.
They work with people, and if they have questions, they only go so far, and if they go further, they ask me,
Yeah.
and I say yes or no.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are more than happy to work with people, and we'll tell them they dial 211, and it gives you every place that helps people
Mhm.
when they can't afford their
Yeah.
bill.
I was gonna say, because I know you work with like CANI, and you work with the township trustees, and like you guys work with a lot of individuals that can
Yeah.
provide that support. And again, I think it is important for the public to understand, like it's a balance. I think again, if I'm speaking out of turn, please let me know. But I think it's a balance, because you want to make sure that you help those individuals that are in a rough spot. That the electricity stays on, the water keeps flowing, etc. But the challenge is that you also have a responsibility to every other ratepayer that is paid on time, and that you don't want to drive up rates because individuals are being let off the hook for not paying for what they've used, right? And so it is a balancing act that I think a lot of people may not think through, that full amount of, you're trying to help, but at the same time you also have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility, to ensure that what is being charged is being collected, and what is being decided. Because again, going back to separation of powers, it is the council that makes the determination of those rates. Now, as well as I do, and you guys all know out here because we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
we have rate studies, we have rate consultants, and we collectively, with the Utility Rate Advisory Board, which is a residential board, we all make the decision of kind of where things need to go from a utility standpoint. And certainly, things are much more expensive than they were even 5 years ago when it comes to chemicals and pipes and transformers and all those kind of things. But trying to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with all those things, I know is really important to you. How can residents contact your office? Or you, for that
They
matter?
can reach me at my office at 260-248-5112
Okay.
or 248-5100, which is the main
The main,
extension.
yep. and they can ask. So maybe one offshoot from that, real quick, is if someone wanted to know. Let me back up. If someone thinks their bill is high, okay, like say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spent X amount in electric this month or water in this month, right? What are the requirements that they have to? What do they have to have in order to get information about their account? Maybe that's really the question I'm asking is.
Well, they can just call in. I mean, if they think their bill's really high,
Mhm.
we'll look at it.
And look
I
at
mean,
the trends from past
yes.
years and stuff.
There's sometimes, I mean, we try our best out of 4,000 or 5,000 customers to catch any high reads.
Mm-hmm.
And like water, say they have a leak.
Yeah.
We usually try and notify them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to.
Yeah.
But the girls are very good about that, and they'll
Yeah.
call them and say, hey, your bill's really up. I think you have a leak.
Yeah.
But if they are questioning their utility bill and they think it's high, we'll look and see. And if it's been 0 degrees, and they have electric heat,
It's got to be a little higher in electric.
Right.
Yeah.
we'll say, let's
Yeah.
wait a month
Yeah.
and see when the weather changes.
And it's basically though a month behind, right? So like
Correct.
I think that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize is we are billing for what you've used, not what you will use, right?
Yeah.
So we usually go, and I don't know what the dates are, but let's say just for happenstance, if you will, here in March they will get a bill from end of January to end of February. That'll be
Correct.
what their bill is for. And so when you say, oh man, it's been 50 and 60 recently, my bill shouldn't be that high. Well, remember 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, it was a lot colder, right?
Yes.
And so that's always the balancing act of education and information kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
they have to be, in order to get that information though, Rosie, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to be actually on the account.
Yes,
Like they
their
have an
name.
individual, and they have to have some identifying information so that you can confirm that they're
Yeah.
that individual, right? Glenna Snyder said, I remember that pond and small park. It was one of my favorite places that you were talking about. But Jeremy Jefferson says, what was your best moment in your position and the toughest, if you're willing to share?
My best moment,
Should I remind
Maybe
remind them that you were awarded a Distinguished Hoosier Award?
yeah, that was it.
I don't know if that was it, but
Yeah,
so
I guess, because of IACT, which is the AIM,
cities and towns, yep.
Cities and Towns, I was voted as, and got the distinguished, I forget
It's
what
a
it was.
Municipal Management Award, right?
Yeah, Municipal
Yeah.
Management Award. And I was just so honored to do that, and to get that. It was just a recognition of my
Yeah.
job and
Yeah.
what I had done. The worst thing,
Well, but
What was
you
it?
forgot though. You also got awarded by a governor,
yes, I did.
right?
I did.
That was the Distinguished Hoosier, wasn't it, or
yeah,
something like
distinguished
that?
user from Governor
Yeah. Pence, was it Pence
No.
or was it
uh,
Daniels
Yeah.
or Holcomb?
Governor Daniels.
Daniels. Okay.
Yeah. And what was the other question?
Worst. If you want to share,
Worst.
what was your worst moment? If you want to share.
Boy,
Had some rough ones last 2 or 3 years ago with Mark, with Park Director.
oh yeah,
That
I
was
would
kinda
say
rough.
that was the roughest.
that was
is
probably
when,
that was pretty bad.
our park superintendent.
Yep.
I discovered that he was spending things that was not right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the
Yeah.
whole detail,
You
but
can always look it up, State Board of Accounts.
Yeah.
It's a public record, so feel free, as I have been said in the
Yeah.
past. But
it
that
kind
was
of
rough.
yeah,
that was
it
rough.
kind of broke my heart
Yeah.
because he, I never dreamt that he would do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you get really attached to these department heads and the employees,
Yeah.
and that was just rough.
That was rough, and it was rough for everybody. Again, and I
was.
think we tried to be as transparent as we could, even though there was a state police investigation going and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we were all glad when we moved past it.
Yeah.
And
And the hatred of some people that are always negative and throwing things on Facebook and
yeah.
don't know all the
facts.
circumstances. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just horrible how
Yeah,
people can be.
comes with the public
Yeah.
from public persona, I guess, at times. So, well, last thing is there anything else you want to discuss or tell the public that they should know?
No, except this was just really a rough decision and shed a lot of tears over it, but I'm looking forward to taking up reading and sitting on my deck and going to the casino, because we really don't travel, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss my employees
Yeah.
so much, and I'm gonna miss the citizens because, I walk into Walmart and people talk to me, and it's just
Yeah.
I keep thinking, oh man, I'm still gonna be here, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna
Yeah.
be the same.
Again, and I told Rosie I wouldn't make her cry, so I'm going to try really hard not to say anything that's going to make her cry. I remember when I came in as mayor. Well, actually, we met before that because I was an
Yes.
intern for Mayor Fleck before me, right? And we met during that time frame and got to know each other enough. I mean, it wasn't like obviously not as close as we are now, but we kind of got to know each other enough. But when I actually was elected mayor, as I was running for the office, it was consistently that I heard, you can become mayor, but we know who the real mayor is, and that's Rosie. And so I was like, okay, well, I know kind of where I stand and where we need to go from there, kind of a thing. But it was kind of funny that just literally, Rosie, just earlier this week, I happened to run into somebody, and we were talking, and they had heard that you were going to retire or step back, if you will, and they said, well, gosh, I don't know what you're going to do since the mayor's finally leaving. I don't know what. And I thought, so even now, even 14 years later, I'm still hearing that comment and stuff. But obviously, you've been a great co-pilot, and I know you're not leaving, so this isn't a goodbye. But I did think it was really important before you decide to take that step back that you were able to kind of tell a little bit of your story, and that the public kind of knows what you do, because again, I think in some ways it is a thankless job, and it is a lot of stuff that you do each and every day to make this community better and to make sure that our finances are in good shape. And yes, some of that is even you saying no to me and no to the department heads, and there are times where I feel like I have to go to Mom and ask for permission, and there's sometimes that we've had great heart-to-hearts about things that we may disagree with. But again, the respect has been a really important part of our relationship, and about how this city has continued to, let's say, not make headlines because the mayor hates the clerk or the clerk hates the council or all those things, right?
Yeah.
As you've said, and it's interesting that when Council President Dan Wegold was here 2 months ago, he said almost the exact same thing, which is we get along well, we work well together, we respect each other, and we go that way, and we want to be a model for government when in a time where it's so acrimonious in other places. So thank you, Rosie. Thanks for sitting down with me. I know this is outside your comfort zone a little bit, but I appreciate you sitting in on this. Let's see if I have anything else. Yeah. So Jeremy says thanks for your service, and there was a like on that and all that kind of stuff. So as always, if individuals have questions for Rosie or for the utility office, you can always call the general line 260-248-5100. Or you could, I'm assuming, email you. Yeah, so you want to give that email?
rmcoyle@columbiacity.net.
Yep. And as always, if you have questions for me, you can call my office. And sometimes we have to just transfer them to you because because you guys know that. So thank you, Rosie. Appreciate you sitting in on this as always.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go just keep talking about some of our past issues, things that are happening, give you some updates. We actually do have some updates for projects this month, for things that are happening. I actually drove by the skate park work today at Eagle Park, and that is happening. They're moving now, which is good. You can kind of see where the bowl is going to be, skate park bowl. You can kind of see where the big ramps are going to be, things like that. So there's a lot of dirt work happening over there. I actually think I even saw them putting down some base, some gravel, some stone, things like that. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that to continue taking shape. It's starting to actually look a little skate parkish, which is good, and not just a bare piece of ground or some mounds of dirt. So that is a really exciting thing for me. Again, completion is scheduled for roughly Memorial Day. based on the forecast, as long as it's not too wet and it's warmish, like today is warmish, even though it's snowing at this moment, I anticipate that we'll probably hit that Memorial Day time frame. So that's a real positive thing. The Blue River Trail South that goes to the school, that has started. We are working, I shouldn't say, the contractors are working to remove some of the concrete and start to pour new and do some things to kind of prepare that trail process. The hope is, and I think the timeline shows, that we're supposed to be completed hopefully by the end of the year. And the one little misnomer, or the one little thing that we don't have 100% nailed down yet, is the railroad crossing. But I think the rest of the project, which takes the trail from basically Main Street over to Line Street, and then all the way down to Radio Road, across Radio Road to the school campus, the majority of that actually should be done by the fall. So I just don't know when the railroad crossing is going to happen, because we're still trying to finalize that. But besides that, that means we're working on the trail, which is like 5 years in the making, which is super exciting for me. And I know there's a lot of kids that walk down State Road 9, or generally speaking, walk through that area that are trying to, walk along the berm of State Road 9 or walk along Radio Road or things like that, which is just not a safe scenario. And so we are excited to finally get that trail going. Again, the majority of that project is funded by grant, and so we had some dollars in it, obviously, but the majority of it's funded by the Next Level Trails program, as well as I believe Deco Foundation gave a little bit of money as well on that. And I've got myself in a corner now. I'm trying to remember. I think Community Foundation helped out with that project, and I think we had some private businesses that also did. So thank you to all those people who have made a difference in making the trail possible, and not only possible, but making transportation safer for our students. Next up is the Pell study. I have no good updates for you, except to say that I happened to see, I think earlier today, that the US 30 Propel study team is going to be in it's going to be in Columbia City. I think it's next week. So check out more. I didn't write down the information, but long story short is they're going to be in town next week to take more public feedback. But we do not have an expected date when the full Propel US 30 study is supposed to be completed. I wish I had more information. The change of administration at the state level has obviously changed some things, and so I think that's why we're kind of delayed in that. The test kitchen / shared kitchen, if you will, we finally got the agreement completed with the school corporation, which is great. However, we are now a little more delayed because we have a vacant community engagement specialist position. So the community engagement specialist falls under the community development director, and one of their roles is to kind of manage the test kitchen, put in the programming, make sure the kind of check-in, check-out systems, all those things are in place. So I say all that to say we now have a job opening available for the community engagement specialist. Our previous individual decided to go into the private sector, and we wish him well. But we do have an opening right now, and that community engagement specialist would kind of be in charge of the test kitchen, among many other responsibilities. But that is why we're now on hold again with the test kitchen. So again, sign up for rave notifications. You can always not only sign up for those, but you can also change and adjust what notifications you get. So if you want to get pool notifications now, or aquatic center notifications now, or wait until later, you can make those adjustments. If you want to get notifications from my office, you can get those. If you want to change your notifications for the utility bills, all those kind of things, you can make all those adjustments on your account. So sign up for Rave, get those instant notifications from the city to you directly. And comprehensive plan work is now starting. I believe next week we have our first steering committee meeting, and then we'll start opening up to stakeholders and start getting public input on those. Obviously, as those meetings are scheduled, we will push out all that information. We want to get as much public feedback as possible to know not only where we're at now, but where we're going to go 10 years into the future or 20 years into the future. As you will probably remember, in 2015, we completed our last comprehensive plan. So here we are 10 years-ish later, and that's why we're doing an update to the plan. So that's what that is about. The next item is going to be a little lengthy, and that is junk pickup. So we just announced junk pickup happening. So I'm going to read through that a little bit, and hopefully that helps kind of clear up some stuff. But west side of the city is scheduled for the week of April 28th. So we take Main Street and we say that, west side is west and east side is east. So that means that everything on the west side would be the Wooddale and Westgate and Chauncey Street and Simonson Avenue and I was going to say Elizabeth Street. I'm pretty sure that's over there. And Deer Chase and all those things are on the west side of Main Street. So that is going to be the week of April 28th. So I say the week of, but what I really mean is you need to have all your junk by the curb or on the curb, not in the street, by April 28th, by that Monday of that week. That will ensure pickup. Now, because of their schedule, I can't promise that by Monday night it'll all be gone. But I can tell you that their plan is to work through that week to get things picked up. So if it is not out by Monday the 28th, then I can't promise you that it'll get picked up, okay? So it has to be out by that day. If you're on the east side of Main Street, that would include Columbia Shores and Countryside Mobile Home Park and Washington Street and Madison Street and Eagle Glen. So everything on the east side, down on Collins and Swihart and all those, that all is going to be the the east side of the city. So that is on the week of May 5th. So east side is May 5th, west side is April 28th. Mark your calendars. Here is all. I will try to truncate this to the best of my ability. All junk needs to be picked up wherever your normal trash can is put out at, okay? So obviously if you have loose articles or things like that, just throw it in your trash tote like you normally would. But if you have things like, if you're remodeling your house, that would be a good time for you to rent your own roll-off dumpster, okay? Because there are certain limits to the things that we can and can't, that our contractor will or will not pick up. Here are those limits. Mattresses and box springs. Those, if you have mattresses and box springs, those have to be wrapped in plastic. You can use mattress bags or plastic painters, drop cloths sealed with duct tape, things like that. That is to help prevent the spread of bed bugs. Not saying you have bed bugs, but long story short is we're trying to. They have that as a mandate for us. Those kind of things are available at department store, the mattress bags, etc. So, mattresses, box springs need to be wrapped in plastic. Bed frames, if they're upholstered, they have to be wrapped in plastic. So the rule is, if you're putting something out for junk pickup and it's upholstered, if it has fabric of any kind, wrap it in a mattress bag or wrap it in a painter's tarp or something like that to make sure that it's really that it's kind of airtight, cleared stuff. The other part of that is if you're going to put it out on the curb and it's not wrapped in plastic, if it rains, it becomes 3 times or 4 times as heavy as what it is, and there actually is a 50-pound limit for those drivers to lift. So I just want to kind of give you that heads up, like make sure that it's by the standards or it won't get picked up, and then you'll be on your own to try to find a way to get rid of that material. So. Okay, let's see. Carpet and padding, that has to be rolled and tied with tape or strung into bundles no longer than 4 feet and no heavier than 50 pounds. Okay? Cardboard boxes, shouldn't be going into the trash. Take them to the recycle center or put them in your recycling box. But if you have to put them out for trash, they have to be flattened and tied into bundles no longer than 4 feet, no heavier than 50 pounds. You will see a trend as I say those things. Gas grills, they have to have the fuel tank removed prior to disposal. That is really, really important. So any kind of grills, generally speaking, need to have their fuel source removed before they're put out on the curb. Lawnmowers have to be drained of all oil and gas, and riding mowers are not accepted. As you can imagine, riding mowers are typically over 50 pounds, so make sure that you dispose of those in the proper manner. Any kind of glass, storm doors or windows or any kind of broken glass, the glass has to be removed and placed in a hard container or a box, taped well and marked as broken glass. Again, the last thing we want to slice one of the trash haulers, slice their hands, slice their legs, slice their body. We don't want to do that. So put the broken glass into a box, tape the box shut, and mark broken glass on it. Super easy. Try to do that, please, for us. Let's see, what else? Swing sets. If for some reason you're getting rid of your swing set, they have to be cut into 4-foot sections. So make sure they're cut to the appropriate size. Exercise equipment, also 4-foot sections. Outdoor furniture, same thing. Sinks can be. Let's see here. Yes, sinks. You're good. You can put out sinks. You can put out toilets, but the toilets obviously have to be empty. I'm not going to go further down that path, but they have to be empty, and the tank has to be detached from the bowl. That is their regulations. Bathtubs can't be longer than 4 foot. Showers can't be heavier than 50 pounds. Pool filters or pool liners or panels, again, make sure those are bundled into sections no longer than 4 feet or no heavier than 50 pounds. Artificial Christmas trees, again, make sure they're cut in half if they're longer than 4 foot. If you have paint, open and dried paint cans, so make sure that you have your cans opened, that the paint inside is dry. My suggestion to you is if you have a decent amount of paint left over in there, take some kitty litter or something and stir it up in there and let it set out so that the moisture will just leave. That is the best option, I think. That's what we've done in our own house. We will not pick up the following things, okay? This is a will not. Propane tanks, you can take those to gas stations or Kroger's. Electronic items like televisions, computers, monitors, DVD players, gaming systems, fax machines, etc. Okay? I believe those things are taken at the solid waste district. Hazardous waste, same thing. Pesticides and insecticides, any kind of toxic substance, they will not accept those. Hot tubs, they won't accept those. Pianos, any kind of manure or guano, especially bat guano. No, I'm just kidding. But any kind of manure or guano, they will not take. Oil and gas, antifreeze, concrete and cement, gravel, dirt, sod, rock, bricks, stones, tree stumps, automotive parts, riding lawnmowers, as mentioned, roofing shingles, or wet paint. They will not take any of those things. As always, if you have questions about those things, feel free to call our office at 260-248-5111. My assistant Ashley is kind of in charge of trash and junk pickup, and she will be able to answer any question you have about that, and if she can't, she will get the information for you. We also have things like tires, stoves, washers, dryers, water heaters, dishwashers, refrigerators, air conditioners, freezers, batteries, and other appliances that can be picked up, but you have to call City Hall prior to May 8th, by May 8th. Call by May 8th at 4 p.m. and we will come and pick those things up, usually the week of May 12th. Now, here's the other thing I'm going to say, is the Whitley County Solid Waste District, as you may remember back in the fall, they held a Tire Amnesty Day where we actually, I am on the board, by the way, but the Whitley County Solid Waste District got a grant to accept tires and recycle tires, okay? So they are going to run these, they're going to run the Tire Amnesty Days kind of in that same time frame as we're doing junk pickup. So our preference, obviously, as always, take the tires out to the recycle center, and they will accept those tires. It's a good program they have out there, and frankly it saves our city employees some effort and some work. We're just going to take the tires probably out there anyways. So please help us, and if you have those spare tires, just take them out to the solid waste district. I will post later. I think I've already done it, but if not, I will post later that Tire Amnesty Day information so that you are all aware of what that is. And by the way, all those items, again, tires, stoves, washers, dryers, water heaters, dishwashers, refrigerators, air conditioners, freezers, batteries, and any other appliances, those have to be out by May 12th at 6 a.m. in order to ensure pickup. Okay, that's a lot of information, and I know that I am running very low on time here. I did have a question. Any updates on plans for the old jail and the old Bowen Center building across the courthouse? The Bowen Center is, I think the county was considering the purchase of that. I don't know that that's happening anymore. Again, I don't want to speak for the county, so I can't really comment on the Bowen Center because I'm not 100% sure. As for the jail, we are working on the jail. As you are, I think, aware, the city accepted as a gift from the county the Whitley County Jail. We are doing we have some plans that are in process right now to renovate and revitalize that jail. It is going to be a little time. It's not going to happen right away. Right now, the county has requested a couple of additional weeks to get some of their stuff out of the jail, and so obviously we're not in a rush. So we have allowed the county to go ahead and make sure they have everything that they need out of that jail. The county is also working, as I understand, on what to do with kind of probation and things like that. Probation is currently in the jail, and so we will be, I guess, in some ways, like, I don't want to say partnering with them, but we'll kind of be their landlord for a little bit is the best way to say it, but we're good partners in regards to that. The initial goal, though, after we kind of get possession of the building and we get it cleaned up and we do the things we need to do, not the full remodel, but just get it cleaned up, is to move the police station in there. So that will be kind of the first order of business. We've already done a little bit of planning on that end to just see, okay, where are things going to be, where are people going to be, and so that is what we're kind of working on right now. And so more information to come on that in the future. We do have some cool plans for that building. I don't want to necessarily give it away, but I will give you a hint that if you watch the redevelopment commission meeting from like 2 months ago, you will see kind of some of the ideas and plans that we're contemplating right now. Obviously, the dollar amount will determine a lot of those decisions, but ultimately, that's kind of where we're thinking and dreaming of going. I keep telling our staff this is kind of a BHAG, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal. It would be a big undertaking by the city, and it would be a big project, but it could have really huge impacts to our downtown and really huge impacts in a positive way to our business environment and to our quality of life and things like that. So I won't go too much more into that right now because, again, we are kind of in that experimental planning-ish stage, but nevertheless, that's kind of where we're at. So thank you. If you have any other questions, post them right now so that I can try to get to them before I hang up here, which is I'm now over time. So thank you for sticking with me. The last thing I'm going to mention before I go to calendar is obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the property tax debate that's happening right now in the State House. If you did not see my newsletter article from I don't know, a month or a week or two ago that we just put out our brand new newsletter, you can go to our website at columbiacity.net, and one of the drop down tabs has city newsletter. I would really highly encourage you to read that just so you have a basic foundational information understanding of the property tax system. It's really easy to say cut property taxes, and I understand that property tax assessments are up, and therefore property tax payments are up, or costs to the customer is up. I understand that completely. Understand that 9 of the last 10 years we have had actually a property tax decrease. Or tax rate decrease, I should say. That's for city proper. That's not schools. That's not county. That's not township. That's the city proper. That we have been able to continue to knock down that city tax rate for our citizens. Again, the total tax rate is made up of school, county, township, library, and city all together if you're a city resident. I talk about that a little bit in my newsletter. I talked about it last time on Lunch with the Mayor, so I also want to encourage you maybe go back and take a look at that. I say all that just to say, as we debate, or as the legislature debates and talks about what's going to happen with property taxes and where we should go, I think it's really important to understand that those dollars are not going to the state of Indiana. They are going to your local government. They are going to make sure that we have police on the street and firefighters to put out fires and dispatchers to make sure they answer your emergency calls, and parks to ensure that we have playground and recreational spaces, and to the streets to make a portion of it, to the streets to make sure that we have good solid streets and infrastructure, and it goes to city government in general. But I say all that just as, and then county too, and then schools, and you can go down that line. I just say all that to say is inflationary costs for us, as I've talked about in many different Lunch with the Mayors, inflationary costs are continuing to go up. It costs more money for us, just like it does for you, to buy materials, to buy chemicals, to buy equipment, to buy anything that we need in order to serve you as residents. And so what I've been asking to the legislature is that we take that in mind and make really cautious decisions. Let's not take an axe to it. Let's take a scalpel to it. Let's make sure we give appropriate relief where it's needed. Let's make sure that we, protect our residents. We never want individuals to be taxed out of their home. We never want individuals to feel like they, they have to choose between their medicine and their tax bill, right? We never want that. So, and somehow my camera went out. So I don't know what's going on there. But long story short is, I guess I'll just stop this with my... I don't know what's going on. Anyways, I'm going to end this way, but just say I'll post lots of different things happening. Thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Again, I apologize that for some reason my camera has decided to go out. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you at our next Lunch with the Mayor, which is currently scheduled for April 4th at noon. Thanks, everybody. As always, feel free to contact me. Have a great rest of the day, and bye-bye.